Hello everybody, I'm Roxy and this is Wreck Me BS. Today I bring you finally my favorite fiction reads of 2019. I'm a bit late, I know. I always wait until January because who knows what December will bring. But I was meaning to upload this the first week of January, but then life got really crazy, and now we're here. Last year I started separating the fiction and non-fiction favorites, and this was mainly because I've been reading more and more non-fiction and it was eating up all the fiction, and that's fine. I'm more critical of the fiction that I read now, I feel like, because when you're exposed to so much of it, it's easy for it to become forgettable, enjoyable, but forgettable. So today I have 8 books to talk to you about. I had a 10 book list, but then I thought that the 2 that didn't make the final cut were actually there just because they were actually really good books, but they were not favorite reads of mine of 2019. So here it is, the 8 books that did make the list. So first of all is The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. This is historical fiction set in Victorian times New Zealand, and it's an astrological mystery. It's very fun, it's very large, and I remember saying that if I felt the same way by the end of the year than when I read it, I would give it 5 stars. I do not feel the same way. A lot of it has faded from my memory. However, I do still think it's a great book. It's so well crafted, and although the characters themselves were so many, they are not especially memorable. I do look forward to rereading this maybe this year, because I remember just being in such awe by the sheer creativity and the style, which is like very Victorian but also very fun and engaging. I was like, yeah, I need to give this another go. And so I think that's what I love about it. But if I don't enjoy the reread, then maybe this was not as good as I remember. Then number 7 is Dancer from the Dance by Andrew Holleran. I think it's his full name. And this was sold to me as the gay Great Gatsby, which I think it's a great description. I hate when people do like the gay something, the black something, but in this case, I think it's true. It sort of reflects at one point in society, and in this case, the gay scene in New York. It takes it with a critical lens that at the same time it's kind of romantic because you were having a great time, but you were also having a bad time. And it's told by an outsider fixating in this quasi-mythical figure and his tragic death. It's musing on love, especially, of course, male homosexual love, and drugs, and society, and parties, and it's very beautifully written, which I think it's plus, because I feel like this book has been done before and will probably continue to be done, but it's so well done and it's just moving and beautiful, and I really enjoyed it. Then number 6 is a really short story called The Uncommon Reader by Alan Bennett. This is a story of Queen Elizabeth becoming an avid reader and this wreaking havoc. It's funny but poignant, and it's such a treat about the power of literature to really influence us, but from the point of view of humor. I think humor, especially in literature, it's so underrated. And in this case, it worked so well and in such a short book. And it opened the door for me to Alan Bennett, who I just love by this point. I really want to read more of his stuff because he's freaking hilarious. Then number 5 is good old Shakespeare, Twelfth Night. I love this. This has become my favorite Shakespeare. Once again, the comedies for me are just works of genius because they're so dark but also so freaking funny. And if you've seen the Globe edition with Stephen Fry, that's amazing. I recommend that. It's recorded, so you can do that because I didn't see it live. I have the DVD. So this is about, okay, 2 twins that survive a shipwreck, but the woman does not know that her brother is alive. So she disguises herself as a man to be able to work. And so she goes to work for Orsino, the count, who is in love with a woman who does not love him back, but he wants to woo her. So he brilliantly sends this gorgeous young man, who's the protagonist dressed as a man, Cesario, and to woo her, but Olivia falls in love with Cesario, and hilarity ensues. And there's also a subplot of the servants, which is very, very interesting. It has a lot of commentary about like class and revenge, and I just adored it. Then number 4, I have Goodbye to Berlin by Christopher Isherwood. Christopher Isherwood I discovered thanks to A Single Man and fell in love right away with his prose. Goodbye to Berlin is a series of sketches, fictional sketches, of Christopher, who's not Christopher Isherwood, but it kind of is. It's very auto-fictional. He wanted to create like a great novel of his time in Berlin, but instead of that, he realized he couldn't really get it together, and so created these sketches, and they are gorgeous, so rich, although they are kind of disconnected, but the characters have a lot of soul, and his writing is so good. So I really, really recommend Christopher Isherwood. I would recommend you start with A Single Man because I think it's like a more cohesive narrative. Then number 3, it's a book I can't stop thinking about, and that is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. I did not think I would like it as much as I did. I'm very suspicious of the hype because I've been burned before by BookTube. However, this story about a woman who has no life ambitions and who does not really understand other people, but loves her job at the convenience store because it gives her a manual of how to interact with the world, and she gets to observe, and she feels part of the world while all her family and friends criticize her because she has no career or romantic ambitions. It's just so great, and it's so well written and so well done. A lot of people feel really detached because of the writing, and I just don't get that. It's so accomplished. So full disclosure, number 2 is actually the best, objectively speaking, book I read all year, and it actually kind of shares spots with number 1. I feel like they are tied. They are so different that I can't really pit them against each other. I ordered them thus for a reason. So number 2 is Stoner by John Williams, and this book is as great as everyone says. This is the story of Stoner, a man who comes from an agricultural background. His parents were farmers, and he's the first one of his family to go to college. He goes there to study agricultural techniques. He falls in love with literature, and that's it for him. He falls in love with college, and it's amusing on small life and what does it mean to have a good life, and what does it mean to be happy. It's so good, and it does this thing where they tell you the whole book in the first 2 pages, and then you see the facts play out for the rest 392 pages, and it's so good. And the writing and the monologues, I'm rereading this book this year. So number 1, or the other half of number 1, I guess, it's Less by Andrew Shore Greer. This was the Pulitzer Prize winner of, I believe, 2018. I'm not 100% sure. And it received a lot of criticism because a lot of people say it's good, but it's not Pulitzer good compared to other Pulitzer Prize winners. I think that is bullshit. I think this book is genius. I think it's underestimated because it's a comedy and because it's overall happy, even if it's nostalgic. It's not a drama. And I think that's the reason people think this is not as deep or as well crafted as other books. But that's stupid because this book is so well written. It does things with the narrator that are so fun and so witty, and the humor in it, and the heart in it, and the characters, and the truth. It's just amazing. This is about Arthur Less, a man who's about to turn 50, who was the lover of a poet, and they lived together almost as if they had got married for a long time. And then they split up, his lover left him, and he then met a younger man, and they started a not really relationship that lasted 9 years. They left it at that, and now Freddie's getting married, and he has invited Les to the wedding, so Les decides to take all the invitations he can get to literary festivals, awards, teaching, whatever he can do to both escape Freddie, but also just have an adventure before turning 50 and not be alone while he turns 50. It's such an interesting book, but it's also just plain fun. I read this, I think, in January, and I then reread it mid-year, and it was the first book I read in 2020. That's how much I love this book. Those are my favorite fiction reads. I hope you liked this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe, and comment what was the best fiction book you read last year. Are you reading anything interesting right now? And that's it. See you next time.